Picture this. You're a wealthy guest at a 16th century dinner party. Your host leads you to his prized art collection and dramatically unveils his newest acquisition. While you expect a pious Madonna or heroic battle scene, instead you're confronted with this. Hundreds of naked people riding on giant birds, fishing inside of fish, and cavorting with creatures that look like they crawled out of someone's nightmare. You'd probably wonder if the wine was spiked. Every time I stand before Hieronymus Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights, I have to forcibly remind myself that this wasn't painted during some 1960s psychedelic experiment. This mind-bending vision was created over 500 years ago, when Columbus had barely returned from America, and most artists were still painting serene Madonnas and crucifixions. But what makes this painting truly exceptional isn't just its weirdness, it's that its strangeness was entirely calculated. Because this isn't just a parade of bizarre imagination, it's perhaps the most ambitious, intricate moral warning ever committed to panel. And here's the kicker. The man who painted this wasn't some medieval rebel. He was basically the Renaissance equivalent of your most conservative uncle. That's the first of many delicious contradictions we'll unravel today. Get ready to dive into the twisted world of Hieronymus Bosch's masterpiece, a painting that shocked its first viewers, confounded art historians for centuries, and might just be more relevant to our world today than ever before. Before we dive into this fever dream on panels, let's talk about its creator, because Hieronymus Bosch wasn't remotely who you'd expect. If you're imagining a tortured, rebellious artist living on society's fringes, think again. Born Hieronymus van Eycken around 1450 in 's mercifully shortened to Den Bosch, Netherlands, Bosch was practically a Renaissance square. He was a card-carrying member of the ultra-conservative religious brotherhood called the Illustrious Brotherhood of Our Blessed Lady. Think of it as the medieval equivalent of being on the church board and never missing a Sunday service. He married well, lived comfortably, and hung out with the town's religious elite. This is hardly the biography of a countercultural rebel. But here's the twist. Bosch was painting during one of history's most turbulent periods. The medieval world was crumbling as the Renaissance dawned. Imagine living through a time when everything you believed about the universe was being questioned. The printing press was spreading new ideas faster than the church could control them. Explorers were returning with tales of lands and creatures that weren't in the Bible. The Ottoman Empire was threatening Christian Europe. It was, in many ways, their version of our internet age, disruptive, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. And while most artists responded by doubling down on traditional religious imagery, Bosch took a radically different approach. He basically said, "You think the world is going crazy? Let me show you just how crazy it can get if we abandon God's path." The left panel starts us off in seemingly familiar territory, Eden before the fall of man. God, portrayed as Christ, which was normal for the time, stands between Adam and Eve, but Bosch immediately throws us a curveball. Rather than showing Eve's creation from Adam's rib as tradition dictated, he depicts the moment when God commands them to be fruitful and multiply. It's like Bosch skipped right to the birds and bees talk in the Garden of Eden. Check out the expressions. Adam gazes at Eve with what art historians might politely call intense interest, but what the rest of us would recognize as the original double take. His cheeks flushed with desire. Eve coyly looks down while somehow managing to present herself like she's posing for the first Playboy centerfold. Even in paradise, Bosch suggests lust was already stirring. And this Garden of Eden? It's already going sideways. While most artists painted Eden as perfect, Bosch's paradise is suspiciously compromised. It's like spotting red flags on a first date. Sure, everything looks nice, but something's definitely off. There's a three-headed bird emerging from the water, a cat with prey in its mouth. Death already exists in this perfect world. Strange reptilian creatures crawl from the pond like evolution gone wrong. The tree of knowledge looks like something from an alien planet, bleeding red sap when cut. And then there's the owl lurking in the central fountain. To us, owls represent wisdom, but in Bosch's time, as a nocturnal predator, it often symbolized evil and darkness. It's as if Bosch is telling us, even in paradise, evil was watching and waiting for its moment. What appears chaotic actually follows a meticulous structure. All three panels share the same horizon line, and each has a central axis drawing your eye through. Bosch isn't just throwing weird stuff at the wall to see what sticks. He's creating a carefully plotted journey through humanity's spiritual decline, like binge-watching a 3-season moral drama where things get progressively worse for the characters who make bad choices. Now we get to the main attraction, the panel that has launched 1,000 dorm room posters and psychedelic comparisons. This is humanity after God's command to be fruitful and multiply was taken perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. At first glance, it looks like the wildest party ever conceived. Hundreds of naked figures frolicking in a landscape of giant fruits and fantastical creatures. It's like Woodstock, a wildlife documentary and a Renaissance fair all got mixed together. But this isn't Bosch celebrating free love. It's his version of those public safety films they used to show teenagers. This is your world. This is your world on sin. Any questions? Despite all the nudity, there's surprisingly little explicit sexual activity. Instead, Bosch speaks in a visual code his contemporaries would have immediately recognized: hollow strawberries, female sexuality, paired cherries, male genitalia, birds, euphemisms for sex. Even in his most outrageous painting, Bosch remains technically decent. It's the 16th century equivalent of using emojis to tell dirty jokes. Some of the most fascinating elements are the transparent vessels throughout the panel, glass bubbles containing lovers, strange alchemical equipment. These are among the only human-made objects in the garden. In one particularly bizarre scene, a couple is trapped inside what looks like an oversized cocktail shaker. Medieval dating was apparently even more complicated than Tinder. The painting follows a visual progression from foreground to background. Near the bottom, figures cavort with animals and feast on disproportionately large berries. Seriously, these strawberries would win every county fair competition. In the middle, a circular parade of men riding animals, including a unicorn, because why not, surrounds naked women in a pool, and in the background, increasingly artificial structures rise in like proto-skyscrapers. It's the entire history of human ambition in one chaotic panorama. In the lower right corner, the key to understanding appears. Adam and Eve return, now clothed in animal skins. Adam points accusingly at Eve, who holds fruit with her mouth sealed by what appears to be a communion wafer. They alone recognize what's happening, like the only two sober people at a party that's gotten way out of hand. So what's fascinating is how each generation sees something different in this panel. Renaissance viewers saw a clear moral warning. Surrealists claim Bosch was expressing the subconscious centuries before Freud. Today, some see an endorsement of free love or a psychedelic vision. But for Bosch, this garden wasn't a paradise. It was a layover on the highway to hell. Its pleasures are as fleeting as the soft fruits being devoured, as fragile as the glass bubbles containing lovers. To quote a more recent philosopher, the bill always comes due. And in Bosch's moral universe, that bill's about to arrive in the form of the nightmarish right panel. If the middle panel is medieval Woodstock, the right panel is the world's worst hangover, magnified by 1,000 and set to last for eternity. Hell, according to Bosch, isn't just generic fire and brimstone. It's a precisely calibrated punishment system, where the instruments of your pleasure become the tools of your torment. It's like the universe's most sadistic form of poetic justice. Musical instruments that once entertained now become torture devices. A man who presumably enjoyed lute music in life now finds himself crucified on a giant lute. Another who played the flute now has one uncomfortably inserted where the sun doesn't shine. If you think music critics are harsh today, Bosch takes musical judgment to an entirely different level. Birds that once entertained now feast on human flesh. The transparent vessels are shattered. Bodies once proudly displayed now desperately try to hide their nakedness. The first walk of shame turned eternal. At the center stands the Tree Man, possibly the most iconic and disturbing figure in the art history. His torso is a cracked eggshell containing a miniature tavern where sinners continue drinking even in damnation. His face is believed to be Bosch's self-portrait, perhaps the artist's way of saying, "I'm watching all this too, and I'm not exempt from judgment either." His legs are twisted tree trunks balanced on boats, suggesting he ferries souls across the river Styx. It's a bizarre job, but in hell's economy, someone's got to do it. Each of the 7 deadly sins receives its poetically just punishment. The vain woman must eternally view her reflection in a demon's backside, the worst mirror placement in cosmic history. The glutton vomits perpetually. The greedy excrete coins into a cesspool, a literal money dump. The slothful are tormented by demons in their beds, the ultimate 5 more minutes nightmare. A building burns in the background while the foreground features a frozen lake, Bosch combining fire and ice centuries before George R.R. Martin made it cool. Nothing here is accidental. Each torment directly mirrors the sins depicted in the middle panel. One of the most telling details appears in the bottom right corner. A pig dressed as a nun persuades a terrified soul to sign what appears to be a contract. This might be medieval shade thrown at corrupt church practices, but more likely it represents the devil's ultimate con job, getting souls to sign away their salvation for temporary pleasures. The Prince of Hell sits perched on a toilet throne, because Bosch never misses a chance to be undignified. devouring souls, and immediately excreting them into a pit below, an eternal cycle of cosmic indigestion that parodies the natural cycles celebrated in the garden. The truly mind-blowing aspect of the Garden of Earthly Delights is how Bosch connects all three panels through visual rhymes and transformations. He's not just painting three separate scenes, he's creating a unified narrative where elements evolve and degrade across the spiritual journey. Track these elements across the triptych and you'll see Bosch's genius at work. The fountain of life in Eden becomes the broken fountain surrounded by revelers in the middle panel, then transforms into the tree man with his tavern torso in hell. Eden's pure lake becomes the garden's pool of pleasure, then hell's frozen lake of suffering. Natural rock formations in Eden evolve into half-natural, half-artificial structures in the garden, and finally fully man-made buildings burning in hell. Even specific postures repeat. Adam's stance in Eden is mirrored by figures in the other panels, creating visual echoes across this moral universe. What's most impressive is how Bosch maintains perfect visual continuity while depicting three entirely different spiritual states. The horizon line remains consistent, the composition balanced, the color scheme harmonious, even in hell's grotesqueries. The technical mastery is as remarkable as the imagination behind it. So what does it all mean? Art historians have proposed more theories than there are creatures in the painting. A warning against heretical sects, a catalog of alchemical symbolism, a coded message about religious reform, a response to New World discoveries. It's been called everything from a heretical manifesto to a psychedelic vision to an early form of surrealism. But the most compelling explanation is surprisingly straightforward. Bosch created a sophisticated visual sermon about the consequences of pursuing physical pleasure at the expense of spiritual salvation. It's not that pleasure itself is evil, it's that pleasure pursued without moral restraint leads inevitably to corruption and suffering. What's remarkable is how contemporary this message feels. In our age of instant gratification, environmental crisis, and virtual reality, Bosch's vision of a world where humans have disrupted the natural order and lost themselves in artificial pleasures feels startlingly prophetic. 500 years after Bosch completed this masterpiece, we're still unpacking its mysteries. King Philip II of Spain, one of history's most devoutly Catholic monarchs, kept it in his private collection. Salvador Dali and the Surrealists claimed Bosch as their spiritual ancestor. Today, it's one of the Prado Museum's most photographed artworks.
So, I feel very lucky I got to spend the night in the museum at Museo del Prado.
Appearing on everything from album covers to coffee mugs. What makes it endure? I believe it's because Bosch captured something timeless about human nature. Our endless struggle between desire and restraint, pleasure and consequence, the physical and the spiritual. 5 centuries before psychology gave us terms like ID and superego, Bosch was painting the battle between our baser instincts and higher aspirations. Each viewing of the Garden of Earthly Delights reveals new details, new connections, new questions. It's like a medieval "Where's Waldo?", where what you're finding isn't a guy in a striped shirt, but rather fragments of human experience reflected back at you by turns beautiful and terrible. So the next time someone claims that fantasy art or surrealism is a modern invention, show them Bosch. 5 centuries before CGI, before cinema, before Freud and Jung, there was a conservative Dutch painter who looked into the depths of human experience and created a world that feels as strange, as terrifying, and as captivating today as it did when it first shocked viewers in the early 1500s. If you enjoyed this journey through one of art's greatest enigmas, subscribe to Galleria for more deep dives into the masterpieces that transformed how we see the world. Keep looking, keep questioning, and remember, in the garden of art history, Bosch planted the strangest tree of all. Until next time.